In this lesson, we will take a step back and look at a bird's eye view of the code that makes up a web page. In previous lessons, we've been simplifying things a bit by only examining actual content, so things like headings and paragraphs and bulleted lists. In this lesson, we'll learn that there's more to a web page. There's things that take place behind the scenes or under the hood. That's enough speaking for now. Let's start looking at a bit of code. Here we are in a text editor with a blank canvas. The first thing I'm going to do is create the HTML element. When we discuss HTML document structure, everything essentially begins and ends with the HTML element. If you recall the Russian stacking doll analogy, every web page that you ever create will always have this HTML element as the root ancestor. This is always going to be the root of our document, the root of our web page. Within this element, we want to create two additional elements. The first is head, and the second is body. In previous lessons, we've only dealt with things like content, headings, paragraphs, lists. Content goes inside the body element. So for example, we could include a header here that says sample page. And then we could include a brief paragraph with only one sentence here. So if I save and refresh in the browser, we can see our content just like we've seen in previous lessons. So we already have a firm grasp on the body element. It's where the content goes. But what about the head element? This is where we include information about our document, about our page. So for example, let's give our page a title. Let's just call this page example page. So now if I save, and if I go back to my browser, I want you to pay attention to the tab label for this page. If I refresh, you can see it then says example page. So the title of your document, the title of your page is very important, and things like that go in the head element. Another example of something that we would include in the head element is the character encoding information, or the character set. So meta character set equals UTF-8. Now this may not make sense at first glance. It may not be the most intuitive bit of code, but essentially we're just telling the web browser what set of characters we want to have access to on our page. Most of the pages that I create are for English-speaking audiences, so I use the UTF-8 character set. But if you're using a language that has vastly different characters, you would likely need to use a different character set. I will include a link in the description for this lesson where you can find a list of all of the major character set options. A quick side note, this marks the first time that you've seen an HTML attribute. In other words, this is the first time that you've seen the equal sign and quotes and then a value. And this is not something that we've done before in the course. So if this line of code does not make sense, you are A-okay, that's fine. This is something that we're going to review in our very next lesson. The concept of assigning an attribute to an element. But for now, please ignore this line of code and let's stay focused on the topic at hand, HTML document structure. We are nearly complete. There's one final cherry on top that we need to add, and it's actually a very important cherry. So up at the very top line of our code, we're going to type less than symbol, exclamation, and then doc type in all caps, and then HTML, and then the greater than symbol to close out this tag. This line of code is simply telling the web browser that we would like to use modern code, modern HTML. HTML has a storied history and it's gone through different iterations, and this code is just letting the web browser know that it's okay to use the most recent version of the HTML language. And that's actually going to bring this lesson to a close. We now have a valid HTML document that will run properly in all modern web browsers. Now I must admit that this is probably one of the least exciting lessons in the entire course, but at the same time it's also one of the most important. This is the basic template, the basic skeleton that all of your web pages will use. In our next lesson, we'll head back to where the fun takes place, the body element. We'll learn how to add a link that you can click on that will take you from one page to another. So we'll create a mini website of sorts. I think it's going to be a lot of fun because linking is really the essence of the entire web. So I'll see you in the next lesson.